My name is Andreas, and I'm a lawyer with Legalline and legalline.ca. We give away free legal information in 107 languages for all the provinces across the country. For the last few months, I've been working with Emma, who's a law student at Western University, and through our partnership with Pro Bono Students Canada, we've been working to edit and increase the number of free answers we have on legalline.ca. So for the last few months, we've been talking about and researching and learning about sports law, and we're here to talk about sports law from a regulation standpoint and, in the context of the upcoming World Cup.
Yes, I did want to talk to you about sports law today because it's a great example of how LegalLine keeps up with evolving areas of law. As these issues continue to evolve, LegalLine provides clear and accessible information to people online.
Sports law is a fun one because it's a bit of a mashup. It's a bit of a combination of different areas of law, contract law, employment law, IP law, and all these sorts of things in a sporting context. So it's constantly changing with sports, the new sports, the old sports that have different rules, and different sort of media and technology changes in the industry that are giving rise to these different legal complications. Sometimes those complications are, lawsuits and issues. Sometimes they're just organization and regulatory related. So that's what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, so especially as sports has become more professionalized, it's also become much more legally complex, as you said. What started as recreational activities has evolved into these enterprises, these massive commercial enterprises, and with that, you need a lot of legal structure. Issues, as you said, like employment law, contract law, intellectual property law, even human rights law sometimes can come into play. A great example is hockey. All that was required for hockey at one point in time was an ice rink, a puck, and a good community. But in the 1900s, leagues like the NHL started to form. And with that, informal rule structures are just not enough anymore. Later, with the rise of television and broadcasting as well in the 90s, hockey has turned into a global business. This shift means that teams start operating like businesses, and in turn, players are no longer just hobbyists participating in a fun recreational sport.
The money has come in. It's not a game anymore. It's big business. It's international business. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars.
Exactly.
And whenever there's big money, we need to know what the structure is. We need to know what the law is. We need to know how to handle disputes, deal with issues before they arise, hopefully, but certainly after they arise.
When sport involves this level of money and visibility, clear rules and structures become essential. A single situation can raise multiple legal issues at the same time. So going back to the hockey example, let's say a hockey player signs a multi-year contract worth millions of dollars. This contract is not only going to stipulate how much money this player is making, the contract could have clauses surrounding player conduct, sponsorship, or even what the player can and cannot do on social media. So let's say a player goes online and breaks this contract. They're not only breaking their own contract, but they're costing the team maybe lots of money in ticket sales or broadcasting.
Bigger broadcasting or bigger sponsorship deals.
Exactly.
Some of these contracts even regulate what a player can and cannot wear. We're talking about whether you can wear a t-shirt or not, or shoes or not. They can be, really, really detailed and really, really specific.
Exactly. And then talking about clothing, let's say a player does something in a team's brand. You're then into intellectual property issues and maybe even defamation issues as well. So there's just so many ways that pre-existing legal principles have to be adapted to work in a sporting context.
What is the law and what is sports law doing to keep up with these changes and stay on top of them as best as possible?
Yeah, so sports law does not operate in a vacuum at all. It does respond with these new interests, risks, and technologies that emerge as society changes. Right now, especially, we see public attention shifting towards issues like athlete safety, mental health, inclusion. There's so many issues in sports right now with discussions surrounding gender and who can and can't play a game. At the same time, sport has become more commercialized through broadcasting deals and sponsorships, and the law has had to adjust contracts to include terms that impose different rights and obligations on each party.
And terms that 5 or 10 years ago you would have never even thought of.
Exactly.
Let alone put in a contract.
We go back to the social media example. Like, you would never think that a contract as an athlete in the mid 1900s, would involve what you can post online. And
Forget about the 1900s. How about 2010?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, it's just sports law helps bring structure to these changes by adapting the existing legal rules, as I've already said, to keep up with how sports is monetized and actually consumed today.
So tell me a little bit about what we worked on together with your Legal Line volunteer work.
I was tasked with editing 8 sports law topics, which were given to me in a very basic format. And basically what I had to do was re-research the topics that were already given to me, make sure they were all correct, and make sure they were written in a way that a layperson could understand, because this is going to be athletes and maybe agents who don't particularly understand legalese too well.
Or even just viewers that are interested when they hear a news article about someone getting a $50 million contract and it makes them think, what is in this contract? What's going on here? They can now, hop onto Legal Line and check out contract law in a sporting context and get some background.
Yes. So that's actually what I really liked about it, because yes, I was doing it in a sporting context, but it also really helped me understand basic legal principles. Because at the moment, I'm only a second-year law student, and I don't know everything there is to know. So editing
Who does?
Who does? Hopefully someday. But editing these sporting law topics also taught me a really, really good and basic level understanding of these different areas of law, like contract, specifically contract. I think that was very important in the work that I edited. And it also gave me a really good understanding of how to simplify this information as well, which was really beneficial to me. So, yeah.
And to our readers.
And to the readers,
everyone, really,
yes.
thank you. Can you give an example of something that you worked on, perhaps a recent change in the law that you think people need to know about?
Yes, so a really good Canadian example is actually that in 2021, single sport betting was legalized.
What is single sport betting?
Before 2021, in Canada, you could only bet a parlay style bet. So what this means is you're betting on a series of outcomes or a series of things that happen in a series of games.
So the Blue Jays need to win on Thursday, the Leafs need to win on Friday, and the Raptors need to win on Saturday.
Sure. If you're betting on that, the only way that your bet can win is if all of these things come to fruition. All of these things are correct. What single sport betting is you can bet on one individual outcome or one individual aspect of one single game. The reason that this was legalized was because single sport betting was happening. It was just happening under illegal betting schemes. Canadian Parliament wanted some sort of regulation.
On the action.
Yeah, well, sure, that too, but they just wanted to regulate it in some form.
You're talking about things like I can now bet on LeBron scoring over 20 points in a game.
Yes.
Or the Maple Leafs winning tonight. Just a single event.
A single event. You can see how this would raise issues when it comes to match fixing. What match fixing is an actor in a game
and
purposefully...
by actor you mean it could be an athlete.
An athlete, a referee, an
right.
official, some sort of participant in the game. They do something that affects the outcome for the people that have betted for that outcome. So you can see why this would raise many integrity concerns in sports.
So an example might be a player intentionally missing a shot.
Exactly. So if a player intentionally misses a shot, the bet wins.
People make money.
Yes. The legal challenge with this bill C-218, which is the new bill that Parliament passed in 2021, is that the regulatory schemes designed to protect the integrity of sport hasn't fully caught up in Canada.
They're outdated, basically.
They're outdated, yes. Canada still doesn't have a single comprehensive framework for preventing illegal sports betting.
Match fixing. Things of an integrity
Exactly.
situation.
Right now, responsibility is spread between 3 independent schemes, and it's not very cohesive. And as we'll see down the line in our conversation, there are many issues that arise with that in Canada.
So talk to me a little bit about what the law is now, and then maybe we'll transition into some alternatives.
So the law operates in 3 independent systems. First, at the federal level, we have criminal offenses. The issue with this is that in Canada, there's no match-fixing specific offense. There's only general offenses such as fraud, bribery, conspiracy, to name a few, that authorities can use to target
So they might be applicable, but they weren't really designed or implemented to deal with this sort of issue?
Exactly. So that's our first
Pillar. Call it a pillar, yeah.
Thank you. On the provincial side, we have the Gaming Commission of Ontario. They oversee legal sports and monitor wagering activities and suspicious patterns. So, for example, regulators can flag unusually large or irregular bets and work with authorities if it works out for them to...
If they need to conduct an investigation or look further.
Exactly. But as we know, they're independent of each other. So it's hard for these unusually large bets that have been flagged to actually be recognized by authorities.
There's a logistic issue.
Yes, there is. So then we come to our final component, which is the sports organizations themselves. So we, as I've mentioned before, the NHL, let's say, they'll have their own governing bodies. But the issue with this is that they are only able to affect what happens within the league itself. So they can impose fines or bans on participants in the illegal match fixing scheme only within the game itself. So whether that's the athlete, the referee, the official who helped, they have no say in what happens in the broader illegal betting scheme.
Everyone's doing their own thing. There's an issue with the cross-talking. Maybe it's happening, maybe it's not, and it's certainly not efficient. How does Canada's current legal setup compare to other jurisdictions? Is it similar? Is it a bit of a mashup everywhere, or are we falling behind the times?
In comparison to jurisdictions similar to ourselves, take the United Kingdom, for example, it is quite behind the times. In the UK, they actually have a federal offense for something like match fixing. In the Gambling Act, they have an offense called cheating at gambling, which gives authorities a clear way to actually investigate and prosecute across different sports. So we're in the sport world. We're not just in a general offense area. Mm-hmm. And then we also have many European countries as well. They have signed something called the Legalline Convention, which is an international treaty that encourages governments to form some sort of dependent factor between all these three schemes that we've already talked about. Unfortunately, Canada has not signed on to that, and responsibility is still split independently.
And it seems pretty obvious how you feel about this. It sounds like Canada should get with the program.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a strong case for it. A federal offense specifically targeting match fixing would help protect the integrity of sport, and it would reinforce public confidence in sport itself, which I guess in a sense is what integrity is.
Well, that's what I want to jump into, because it's the beginning of 2026. The World Cup is coming to Canada in a few short months. How do you think this is going to play out? Do you think we're equipped to deal with potential issues of, illegal betting or match fixing and that sort of thing?
That is a really important question. I think hosting a major event like the World Cup, it puts Canada under a lot of regulatory pressure.
And scrutiny.
Both at home and internationally as well. There's a real expectation that the host countries are going to have strong systems in place to protect the integrity of a sport that's so well-loved worldwide, like soccer.
The biggest sporting event in the world.
Exactly. I think the World Cup will perhaps highlight the gaps in our system and show just how urgent it is to...
I'm going to pause you right there. This is making me think of something totally off topic, but kind of on topic. The TTC. We know that the government's under a lot of pressure right now to get this Eglinton subway sorted out before the World Cup. There's going to be a lot of people coming in, and Canada wants to look sharp. We want to look good. We want to look on the ball. And I'm skeptical if that's going to happen, and I'm a little bit skeptical about what's going to go on with this match fixing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that is a similar situation because a few years ago, I can't remember the year specifically, but the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime actually released a report that was, this is very a basic understanding of it, but it was essentially saying, the World Cup's coming up. These three countries, like North American countries, have to get your act together when it comes to match fixing. And I'm not entirely sure if anything was actually done about it, but it was a report.
It doesn't seem like it.
There was a report set out saying, this is what we should do, though. So
based on what the current law is, can you walk me through what would happen if there was some suspected match fixing at the World Cup?
Under Canada's current system, a suspected case of match fixing would likely first be flagged through weird betting activity. Provincial regulators like the AGCO in Ontario monitor unusual wagering activity. And
I imagine they have some algorithms that just flag things that seem out of the ordinary.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm not a technical genius, so I can't say for certain, but yes. But as I've said, their authority is limited. They can't investigate players. They can't investigate teams. They can only cover their own province and licensed betting markets.
So you think if they did flag something, they might hand that off to police, or how would that work?
Yeah, so if the case moved beyond that, law enforcement could get involved. They, again, would rely on the criminal code, the general offenses, like fraud, bribery, conspiracy. But the problem is these offenses weren't designed specifically for sports. So proving elements like deprivation, which is required for some of these general offenses, or even linking conspirators can be tricky, especially when bets span multiple jurisdictions and online platforms. I mean, we have online betting, so it's hard to tell which jurisdictions come into play and if Canada even has
And
a say.
how about if the alleged offenders live internationally?
Exactly. So that is the issue. The federal offenses are only applicable to people within Canada's federal jurisdiction.
It's a bit of a mashup.
Exactly. There is also FIFA themselves, who would likely launch their own disciplinary proceedings. So although I say the provincial AGCO can't do anything about the players themselves, FIFA would probably step in, and they would probably be the quickest and most efficient at penalizing people for being a part of this. But again, they can only do so much as
Well, they want to get on
part of the
top of
game.
it so that they can maintain the integrity in the sport, maintain the viewership, maintain the billions and billions of dollars coming in.
Exactly.
Quite frankly, they're the biggest losers if something goes wrong.
Yes, FIFA does have the most at stake here. I think them acting so quickly is a result of them having so much money in the game. Also, they really want to push strong deterrence factors so that their actors don't participate in these kind of things.
Yeah, they want to be able to maintain integrity in sport.
Exactly. And I think that's something that maybe having a federal offense specifically for match fixing could be beneficial for the other side of it, because I don't think there's a strong enough deterrence factor on the actual people who operate these illegal betting schemes.
It almost hasn't been addressed directly. We've seen that it's a bit of a patchwork, bit of a mashup. We've got some criminal stuff. We've got some gaming commission stuff. It's not exactly clear where all this falls. And that's why I think it's incumbent on the government, and it seems like you're of the same opinion, to get some proactive legal framework in place.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Is there any reason we should be optimistic or hopeful?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned, the United Nations has kind of stepped in and said, maybe we should reconsider this. And I think it's something that has to happen slowly. I mean, as we talked, sports law has an evolving nature. So it's going to take time. And I think having the World Cup here is actually a good way to start, because hopefully there's not, but if there's any large-scale issues with this, Canada's not particularly on their own, because realistically it's going to happen over the whole World Cup, and the World Cup involves other jurisdictions like Mexico and the United States. And while that might seem tricky, given that
there's jurisdictional issues,
I think it kind of gives the Canadian government some backup in the sense. So ultimately the World Cup will be the real test of whether the legal and regulatory structures in Canada are strong enough, which I don't think they are right now, but maybe I'll be proven wrong, and hopefully I will be proven wrong.
I hope you're wrong.
Yes, me too.
Thanks for joining me today, and thanks for all your great work at Legal Line.
Thank you so much for having me.